Few men in the world have been as idolized and at the same time as hated as Cuba's Fidel Castro. A man who to some was a revolutionary legend in his own time, while to others a merciless communist dictator. In 2006, Castro disappeared from the public eye after emergency intestinal surgery forced him to hand over power to his younger brother, Raúl. But he did not disappear entirely from the scene. Already in his 80s and visibly frail, he defied all predictions and began appearing in public, reinforcing his bigger-than-life image. For nearly 5 decades, he determined the fate of generations of Cubans, while becoming the ideological godfather of left-wing leaders all over Latin America. Fidel Castro came to power in 1959 after leading a popular revolution against Cuba's then-dictator Fulgencio Batista. From the beginning, the charismatic but temperamental Castro left no one indifferent. The bearded revolutionary's leftist ideology soon clashed with the United States, pushing the Caribbean nation into the arms of the Soviet Union at the height of the Cold War. In October 1962, Soviet missiles were brought to the communist island in what became known as the Cuban Missile Crisis, which brought the world to the brink of a nuclear war. Y que esa revolución socialista la defendemos con esos fusiles. Washington responded with an economic embargo that continues to this very day. Fearing they would lose everything, thousands of well-off and middle-class Cubans fled the country, while the millions who remained became part of a grand experiment to create what Castro and fellow revolutionary Ernesto Che Guevara called the new man. It was the creation of a communist-inspired socialist society with only one political party, led by one man, Fidel Castro.
I'm going to tell you something. He will never be absent. His ideas will last forever.
Castro's revolution did provide education and health care to all, and did much to address racial inequality.
When you look dispassionately at the Cuban experience, and you see that there are no children begging on the streets, or people searching through the rubbish bin for food, and that there's education, I think for a small, poor country like Cuba, suffering from an embargo, that is an impressive achievement.
But at what price? During his long rule, thousands of opponents were imprisoned, sent into exile, or both. According to Castro, anyone who dissented was a traitor at the service of U.S. imperialism. Hubert Matus, who died in 2014, was a former revolutionary who spent 20 years in prison for opposing Castro.
What Castro did was take away all the rights of the Cubans. He turned the whole country into a huge prison.
Castro was never able to achieve a socialist land of milk and honey, not even when the former Soviet Union was subsidizing his economy. True, the U.S. economic embargo did take its toll, but Castro used it to justify all the nation's problems. Critics say that Castro's refusal to budge from his outdated and inefficient socialist model is to blame for the impoverishment of his people. Facing near total bankruptcy, in 2010, Cuba loosened some state controls over the economy, but not over the political system. At the Communist Party Congress in April 2011, Fidel Castro received a standing ovation as his younger brother took over the last of his titles as first secretary of the all-powerful party. The age of Fidel Castro was coming to an end. It would be the more pragmatic Raúl Castro who would oversee the historic restoration of diplomatic ties with Washington. Until the very end, Fidel Castro was a proud man who scoffed at international and domestic criticism, always insisting that his was the most democratic system in the world, convinced until his dying breath that his revolution would survive him.